This is the Amp Hour Podcast, recorded September 5th, 2011. Episode 59, Bonafide, BeagleBoard, Bionomics.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble from Chris Gamble's Analog Life.
And this is Jeff Keyzer from MightyOhm.com.
And Jason Kridner of Texas Instruments and BeagleBoard.org.
Wow.
Hey, guys.
Full house.
Full house.
Yeah, full house.
Chris invited every man and his dog this week, I think.
Dogs are upstairs. They're not coming down. Although the BeagleBoard, I guess the BeagleBoard's got a dog on as a logo, right? So.
Oh, right. Yes, it does. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you.
What have you been described as? The third wheel of
The Ed McMahon.
The Ed McMahon?
You know, I'd like to take issue with the Ed McMahon. I listened to the show last week, and I was a little bit... I feel like I'm a little better than that. I'm a little better than
Ed McMahon's awesome.
Ed McMahon. No, but I actually contribute some technical content to the show. I add value more than just yes,
sir. That is correct, sir.
But I definitely cracked up. I thought it was funny. But come on.
Okay.
And we have Jason Kridner in the house. Welcome, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Is it Kridner or Kridner? I don't know if we've ever gotten that right.
It's Kridner. It's one of those. It's a German last name. It's one of those things where whoever came over.
The Germans.
Yeah, crazy Germans.
Those pesky Germans. Yeah.
Whenever they came over to the United States, somebody dropped the E out. So
yeah. So it was actually immigration officials that was the problem. Huh?
Right.
Yeah. It was crazy Americans, crazy somebody.
Yep.
But then they saved you from a life of being Kridner, right? Because that's probably how most Americans would have.
They probably did save that, yeah, because that. The E did come before the I.
Except after C.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here.
We've met before, Jason, right? We met at the Maker Faire this year.
We did.
And I took one of your classes a long time ago at ESC in the Bay Area, so it was a good class.
I'm glad to hear that. We're going back to Boston and later this month, giving some more hands-on classes with the BeagleBoard and doing some more actual interfacing up to electronics. So instead of just more software, it's actually going to be a little bit more interfacing stuff.
Cool. And that's actually how I met Jason too. I was sitting in a class, and I think I made some snarky remark on Twitter, and Jason took offense, and we met up and I apologized, and then,
Excellent.
The rest was history.
I feel left out here. I haven't met anyone.
Well,
just haven't made enough snarky remarks on Twitter, apparently.
Oh yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, it's not that 12,000 miles of of ocean between us.
So, Jason, how about for the uninitiated? What is BeagleBoard Project? I mean, we've mentioned it on this show before, but just anyone who hasn't heard about it, or maybe you can give us a quick rundown and how it relates to TI and everything else you do.
There's a lot of different ways to come at describing it. For the uninitiated, I usually try to describe it as essentially taking the guts of a cell phone and opening it up so that other people can hack on it and make it into what they want. So, the cell phone processors these days are really powerful. Low power, you can do all sorts of crazy things, runs all sorts of software on it, and the BeagleBoard just sort of blends that world of embedded electronics and makes it look like a computer, so that people who maybe aren't that familiar with doing embedded development can just sort of ease into it from desktop sort of computer development environment.
Okay.
And if I can ask, where did the name BeagleBoard come from?
Gerald has a beagle. He's a fan of beagles. Underdog, is a beagle. That's the most important thing to remember.
Oh, I see. Cool.
So
it was an internal code name. You know how those things stick around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're fun to come up with, too. I love coming up with code names. come up with some ridiculous stuff.
So people take the BeagleBoard, which I've played a bit with. I've never really gotten heavy into BeagleBoard development, but I've kind of messed around with it. I took the class. The class was cool. You got to run Android on it. Got to run some kind of Linux. I can't remember now.
Probably Angstrom.
Angstrom, that's it, yeah.
Angstrom, yeah. It was Angstrom, and I think there were a couple other things. But maybe for the benefit of me and also our listeners, what are some of the most, or like, what are some of your favorite things that people have done with the BeagleBoard, aside from give TI a lot of money?
There's been a lot of cool robotics stuff. I think that's where where you see most of the projects coming out, doing vision stuff, these autonomous drones. So you see these flying vehicles that go around and recognize objects and actually build out 3D maps, and people put connects on these things, and they run libfreenect, and they can take in all that data from their connect, and they'll build 3D maps and recognize people's faces. There's build robots that will dance with you, and those sort of crazy things.
So is anyone using it to flash an LED? Or am I just too old-fashioned?
So most of the time now, when we start a class, I do the here's how to flash an LED exercise. It's a little bit different than the Arduino Blink,
right?
But yeah,
because there's quite a lot of people who actually compare it to the Arduino, and they say, well, it's just a more powerful version of the Arduino, really. Because what is actually the hardware processor?
It's totally different.
The hardware processor, totally what's that?
Sorry, what is?
The actual hardware processor used in it. Which one is it?
Yeah, maybe historically, if you could tell us too. I mean, like, what did it start out as? And because it's changed, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it has changed, has it? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's it started out as an OMAP 3 processor, which is that brand comes from the cell phone product line for TI. And I don't know if you've heard the DaVinci brand.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
video
DSP
processors
stuff, right?
with the DSPs, and really, if you look in the guts of the chip, it's the same stuff. But the new one, the BeagleBoard XM, is actually a DaVinci DM3730, but it's still the same guts as an OMAP 3630.
Right, so it's basically an OMAP processor, and it's in a similar form factor to the Arduino. Really, it's just a bare board, right? Is that how it's still sold? I haven't kept up to date on the BeagleBoard market, I'm sorry.
Well, the BeagleBoard includes USB host ports on it, so that's kind of different. Instead of just being a bunch of pins to go out and do direct drive sort of expansion. It's more focused on expanding with computer peripherals. Although there is an expansion header on there, it's not as extensive. It's only a lot of it's 1.8 volt.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that you would buy off the shelf to try to extend it, you're going to need to add on level shifters.
And that becomes a pain in the butt, right? Yeah.
It does.
But I think to answer Dave's question, though, it's a bare board. It doesn't come with an enclosure, but unlike the Arduino, it has an HDMI port, right? So you can turn it into a PC. No, the Arduino does not have an HDMI port. But one of the coolest things about the BeagleBoard, I think, is that with only a couple... It's kind of like the Mac Mini of embedded boards, because you just add a keyboard and a mouse with USB, and you can connect a monitor to it with HDMI, and it even has audio output, right? I mean, it's like it's almost like a PC, like a single board computer. It's got all the I/O just right there.
It is a full computer, right? You can run, Ubuntu Linux, which is the most popular Linux distribution out there. You can just download an SD card image and just pop it on and just go, right? It's a Linux desktop computer. So but it is still low power, and you can still get to all those I/O pins, and you can get to, the single line commands that help you toggle LEDs and, control switches through your house and stuff. Or you could just drop on, 4 Arduinos if you want on the USB ports.
So that's the ultimate way to describe it, really. It's just a single board computer. Am I not wrong?
I think there are a lot of those out there, though.
Yes, there are. Well, how does this differ? Is it just because it's open source and it's how does it differ from another single board computer that has seriously?
Just because it's open source, I think there's a lot in that statement.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's an open source single board computer. That's the best way to describe it.
How many of those are there?
I think
there's not very many of those on the market.
There's the Maximide, which we've talked about a couple of weeks back. It's an open source single board computer.
Remember the Pinguino?
It'll be now based on the Pinguino platform using the PIC32, but it's a single board computer. It's got a basic interpreter built in. It's got monitor, keyboard. You just hook it up and it works. Bang, like a PC, a single board computer.
I think the community and the performance, right? So I think they can do a lot more than what you can do with a PIC32, and you're talking about a gigahertz on Cortex A8 and running full Linux desktop distributions and just all the community that's around the BeagleBoard today. Just because it is a lot of performance at a low price.
Yeah, the thing I always remember about some of those demos I've seen is like the 3D stuff that BeagleBoards have done. When you actually do hook up a monitor, you can start doing 3D processing and all that other junk. And that just seemed, whatever. It's just junk. It's simple, right?
All that geeky software shit, right?
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
I think it's pretty impressive. I've
of
played
course
with
it is.
one, and you're talking about a 1 gigahertz PC and like a 4x4 inch package.
At 3.25 by 3.25.
Very tiny.
And how much power does it consume at its maximum?
About
frequency?
2 watts if you're
2
not
watts?
Yeah, it depends on what you draw off of the USB host ports, right? So
right, of
2
course.
watts for doing video at the same time as that's like sort of the high end of the processing, everything on, but then you still have to add in if you're adding a USB peripheral that chews up a lot of power.
Right.
So 2 watts plus whatever you're drawing off of the USB host port.
So is it scalable back to? Here I go again. I'm old-fashioned. Is it scalable back to like 32 kilohertz so you can run the thing on the smell of an oily rag, or is it full throttle only?
It pretty much is. What you run fast and shut down, right? It has very low standby currents.
Yeah, I'm not particularly talking about standby, but actually low operating frequencies. Is there low frequencies you can run it at if you don't need all that processing grunt for most of the time? You can just run it at 32 kilohertz or megahertz or something.
No, the lowest you can get down to is like 300 megahertz.
No.
But
can Dave hook up a light switch and do the clocking manually? That's what he really wants to know.
Exactly.
That's Dave's ultimate. Click. Yeah, exactly. Set some dip switches.
No,
register.
But there's some real benefit
Set some dip switches. Register
in that, because you can. A lot of people they don't particularly need all that processing power all of the time. You might be doing something simple and you want to use as low a power as possible, and then dynamically change the clock rate up to your 1 gigahertz when you want to process something serious.
So it does have dynamic. It does have dynamic frequency and voltage scaling.
Yep.
But the thing is it only it can only go down so far, and then the thing is just run fast, go to sleep. And it has incredibly low sleep. You can cut all the power off to the CPU, and
but you can't do any processing when it's in the sleep. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you're done with all the processing by that time.
Well, no, you're not. Often you just want to do some
peripherals. You can leave peripherals going. Like if what you're doing is audio processing, you can actually leave an audio processing buffer that's going to move stuff into memory while the CPU is off.
Okay, cool. Right.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of peripheral stuff that you can leave on and have the CPU powered off.
Okay, that's pretty good. Still, sorry, I want to see low dynamic clock rates. Call me old-fashioned.
We'll work on that for you.
Excellent.
For you.
Thank you very much. That's an official request of Texas Instruments. Now, what's the deal with TI selling the OMAP? Is that or selling the what are they? Yeah, they're spinning off OMAP, right? Are you allowed to talk about that? Can you deny the rumors?
I can deny the rumors because we've come out publicly and denied the rumors in each time. So
that makes it kind of easy.
Yeah, that
Company
makes
man
it the
all
easiest
way.
thing possible.
Right. Excellent. So it was just some bad rumor started by Electronic. Who was the magazine? EE Times, was it, Chris? Do we want to?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was on their
they
forums and
started
stuff.
it. I thought it
Or
started
they
from
continued
They
somewhere else.
publicised it, yeah.
That's right, because remember the semi-accurate, Dave? The
semi-accurate
the
website,
site that we
yeah.
like.
And it lives up to its name. It's
Accurate
only
started naming the companies that were buying OMAP out, supposedly.
Really?
Yeah. They were talking about Broadcom and Intel and everybody else, yeah.
Honestly, since they know I talk so much, they don't tell me
Right.
anything. So.
Well, it's the same with me and Altium, right? I didn't know Altium were moving to China until they handed over my paycheck, and said bugger off.
So I was walking the rumor mill with everybody else.
Yeah. All right.
Jason, I wanted to ask you about just kind of the I guess the clientele would be the right word for that. Like, so BeagleBoard, open source, there's a lot of people interested in that. But is this kind of a way to get hardware people back into doing software? Is that kind of the people you see doing this, or is this kind of the other way around, seeing high-level software programmers trying to dive down into hardware?
For me personally, right? So it was high-level software people down into hardware, and I think our actual future vector here, where we're going to try to head more, is focus more on the hardware hackers and try to bring them up into some of the higher level software. But certainly the initial BeagleBoard was focused on high level software developers and enabling them to do stuff that was towards embedded. And that met my personal interest, because I like JavaScript and really high level coding and working on website stuff and website technology. And I've been an embedded hacker for forever. And I've always wanted to take a lot of this, high-end web stuff, Node.js in particular nowadays, and put that into embedded hardware.
Cool. All right. So, what kind of, when you say you're targeting the hardware hackers more, does that mean more expansion ports and everything else, like trying to get more bits flipped and more interfacing to self-made peripherals, that kind of thing?
Exactly. So getting away from the 1.8 volt I/O, getting to 3.3 volt at least, a lot more pins for expansion. Just being a lot more friendly to adding on hardware. Okay.
And so what's driving that kind of thing? I mean, is it just seeing the open source hardware community? Is that kind of what it is, or is it preference, or what's doing? Like, who's driving this train? That's kind of what I'm asking.
So I look at like a lot of the projects that are coming out, and those things that are kind of the sexiest and most interesting, and the things that I'd personally like to play with more. Right. So to me, the BeagleBoard is it's pretty inexpensive, but it could be cheaper, right? And so I'm drawn by the allure of just everybody else in the industry of things like the Arduino, right? So going more towards that direction.
Okay. So what do you think about like Raspberry Pi? That's like the new one that's coming out. That's pretty cheap and small.
Raspberry Pi?
Yeah.
What?
It
Do
you not know what it is, Dave?
No,
I
don't know. Obviously,
okay.
I'm not up to
I thought you were
date
like questioning
on food.
Tasty
acumen.
Tasty dessert.
Pi, P-I, not P-I-E.
Best with ice cream.
Well, that makes it all better.
Is it real? I mean,
Apparently.
I think it's real. I don't actually know that much about it, but I've been seeing it. They've been on the web a bit, and they've got a site at raspberrypi.org, and they're going to be at the Maker Faire, so I'll be able to tell you more in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah. Jason, you going to that next Maker Faire, too?
I think I'm going to miss it.
Oh, okay.
I was really looking forward to it, but there's just a bit going on, so...
There you go. Raspberry Pi is they bill themselves as an ARM Linux box for $25.
Yeah,
which is an impressive bill. It's impressive billing if they get it right, but and I think they're on the way to doing it because they're demoing.
It's vaporware, is it, at the moment?
At the moment,
I think they've demonstrated some prototypes, but I don't think you can buy one yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
So I want to know if you can really do it for $25, and I think it's an 800 megahertz ARM11. So
that's about us page. Yeah,
a third or less of the performance of a BeagleBoard.
Okay. Yeah,
well, is it just going to be capable?
Right?
Is it just going to be a chip on a board like the Arduino, or is it going to actually be what they claim, and it's going to be a Linux box, which means it's got to have like it's got to have video out, and it's got to have, keyboard and USB and all that sort of
I think that's what they're pushing
Okay,
for.
for 25.
Based on the demos I've seen,
Okay.
that's it's like a little computer with an HDMI port and keyboard and mouse. And
They've got a video
Well, the thing is, the
coprocessor in
HDMI
there,
doesn't cost
apparently.
you much on the hardware side these days to actually implement that. So, yeah, really, I can't see why they can't do it for $25. They wouldn't be making much on it, of course, but
Do we know who's behind it? Is Broadcom? Is this a Broadcom project?
I could swear that I saw a board that had Broadcom written on the printed circuit board last week. So I actually don't know for sure, but I think there might be some connections there.
So,
I definitely... Yeah, okay, so if you go to Raspberry Pi and you scroll down, there's an image of the top of the board, and it says right on it, Broadcom. With the logo.
Well, I'll tell you what, the domain's a dead giveaway. It's .org, not .com. So they're, in fact, if you go to the About Us page, they say they're a UK registered charity.
Yeah.
There you go. That exists to promote the study of computer science and related topics, especially at the school level, and put the fun back into learning computing. Excellent. So it looks like they're probably doing it for very little profit, just to cover expenses, probably. So that's what you'd expect at that sort of price point, though. You know, you wouldn't be in it for the money, I'm sure.
And there is a picture of it on the wiki page as well, so a little bit more info about it on there. And it says 50 alpha boards were delivered in August, so that was pretty recent. So we'll see. That'll be interesting to see what it actually pops out of that. But
there you go. It's got a 700 megahertz ARM11, 128 meg of SD RAM. It's got a H.264 high profile decode, 1080p, composite and HDMI video, USB 2, SD card.
That's interesting. They're doing
And it's got
composite
an
out.
optional Ethernet controller and hub, so that's optional. But there you go.
Red as cost a little bit extra. I think they were talking about adding some of that for only $10 though. Maybe the Ethernet for $10.
Yeah, possibly.
That's interesting though. It seems like it's kind of a stepping stone, like between like Arduino, then Raspberry Pi, and then BeagleBoard still seems to be the heaviest hitter there on the top. Because it's dual core still, Jason. Is that right?
Well, the BeagleBoard is it's an ARM plus DSP plus the 3D graphics. So it's not dual core in the sense of symmetric multiprocessing. It's a DSP processor there.
Okay.
Which can do more than the ARM for certain tasks, and for running Linux tasks, maybe it does less for you.
Okay.
Now, what about this Microsoft Gadget Master? Worst Name of the Week award goes to Microsoft for the Gadget Master board, which they claim is taking on the Gadgeteer.
The Gadget Master is the name of the site you're reading
Oh,
off
it's got
of,
the name of the blog. Sorry. I'm looking at the webpage and it's got Gadget Master. Made a fool out of myself. The Microsoft Gadgeteer. Is that any better than the Gadget Master? No, not really. It still wins the shitty Name of the Week award. I'm sorry. Anyway, they claim it's taking on the BeagleBoard.
Yeah, so what's your feeling on that, Jason?
I'm very intrigued by this. It is an ARM 7, so we're orders of magnitude off here in performance, right? The BeagleBoard is tremendously higher performance. But the whole idea, I mean, the fact that it's this appealing now for large corporate interests really to try to get into this, a game of appealing to hobbyists is incredibly interesting to me. And and I've experienced this inside TI now, where when we started the BeagleBoard, it was kind of a skunkworks project. Really, it was very much on the side, something that Gerald and I and Steve Kippish and Qasim Sayed Mohammed and we just kind of went off and tried to do this on our own. And now it's hard to make a move left or right without sort of everybody in TI saying, what are you doing next with the BeagleBoard? And
Wait, in what sense? Because do you mean like they're worried about what it provides, like to the company now, or just because they're curious about what's coming next, like the cool stuff that's happening next?
Well, it's just it's been discovered just how great it is to appeal to hobbyists, and so everybody wants to sell their next chip, appealing to the hobbyists, and that's hobbyists get the buzz out. They help solve problems.
And they give free marketing.
And they give tremendous amount of free
That's the bottom
marketing.
line for a big company like TI, let me tell you. I don't want to be cynical, of course, but...
Oh, yes, you do. Dave, you operate on cynicism. That's like
right.
You could, instead of running off the smell of an oily rag, you run off cynicism.
I think it's a good thing for all of us, though. People that want access to technology, want to do cool things on our own, to have the big guys interested in marketing to us, right? And when you see everybody doing it, it kind of levels out the playing field quite a bit. And I think we can kind of run the sniff test on the technology and people's interests, and I think it all ends up helping us out. I think it's for the best.
Yeah,
but I'm still correct.
I think you're right.
But everyone wins. It's a good
thing. Everybody's very much interested in the marketing aspect of reaching out to hobbyists.
Yeah. So, is this Gadgeteer open hardware? I don't see any mention of it.
I don't know.
Anyone know?
No.
Do you really care?
Oh well, if they saying if they're coming out with the
throwing
claim,
it back in your face, Dave. Huh?
Well, no, you should care. You should care, because the correct response from you, Jason, from the what do you think about the Gadgeteer, is if it was open hardware. Your correct response should have been, it's fantastic. That's the whole idea of open hardware. Woohoo! All that sort
I
of
just
stuff,
haven't found that much interesting about the hardware itself. I'm very interested in the fact that that Microsoft is and the .NET Micro framework is open software. So moving
is it?
that,
okay, I wasn't aware of that.
So there's
I'm
actually a
not that
really
geeky.
interesting thing here. Because you can take that .NET Micro framework and implement that on all sorts of microcontrollers and use their tools, to produce these systems. So I think that's actually an interesting, whether or not that form factor of the breakout board with all the pins and these, all these little modules that you can slide onto it.
Looks like the brainchild of Doc Ock.
It does. Oh boy!
So if the Doc Ock board is interesting to you, if you need that design, that's why I'm not sure that it matters too much if it's open hardware, because I don't know that I'd ever want to duplicate that thing.
Yeah, well, I think the plug-in modularity
I think
of it.
It matters a lot.
I mean, I like modularity. That's always a big thing for me. But there's always trade-offs, and in this case, it's how it looks. But yeah, it's I mean, we'll have to talk to someone who actually has used it. I haven't used it, and I don't think any of you guys have either, right?
I don't have any interest in any .NET products.
Not a big Microsoft embedded kind of person.
No,
Jeff?
Mainly because I don't have any experience in that area. But
Yeah.
I don't see any evidence at all that this is open source. Looking at their website.
Yep. In that case, we won't mention it again then.
I did a 5-minute search when it first came out to try to look for the hardware specs, and I really had a hard time finding them, other than to figure out that it was an ARM7, and I sort of lost interest.
So, as usual with Microsoft, is it too little, too late, or they're playing catch up, and they're still goofing it up. They still don't get it,
Yeah, maybe.
The whole idea is not actually appealing to hobbyists, but actually appealing with open hardware and all the information, and so people can build on it and things like that. If you have to buy the boards, if you have to buy the proprietary boards from Microsoft, well, that's going to damper a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, not only that, but I suspect that many of the development tools only run on Windows.
So
that
might
you
that's
gotta,
kind of
you got to appeal. The hackers are not all Windows types, right?
Yep.
If you want to appeal to the enthusiast crowd, you really, really, really need to support all operating systems.
But when they came out with this, I remember because we talked about it on the show when they came out with this, and they were showing videos, and obviously they had people that are very enthused about it, but it was already .NET programmers, and it was a venue for them to get down to hardware.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much they're not necessarily, they're still abstracting a lot of it out of it, but at the end, what it shows up as is blinking an LED. There's that magic LED application. That's a big deal, especially for someone that's working just in the software realm. So I think that's really what they were targeting.
And I'm not so sure that the tools only work on, well, maybe the Microsoft provided tools only work on Windows, but the work of Miguel de Casa, I think that he's got a lot of this .NET stuff running on Linux.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
I don't know. I think he gets a pretty rough time in the open source community, right? He's actually a pretty famous figure. But I think the fact that he's servicing all these Microsoft technologies, if the technology's there or not, I think Microsoft has been given such a bad rap for being closed. Even if they are really completely open, are they ever going to be given credit for it? I think it's one of the nice things about me working for a semiconductor vendor is although some of the intentions here with the hardware platforms are questioned some. Whatever your software agenda is, people don't question it, right? It's you just want all the software to run, so it makes it nice for me to be able to just play with whatever software I'd like.
That is nice.
Excellent.
So let's hear about some more of those projects that you have seen. I mean, so some of these higher level software projects that you've seen, Jason, can you run us through some more of those? I mean, maybe the best crossover of software onto hardware, that kind of thing.
Man, yeah, because it's running full Linux. I mean, it's kind of hard to say, what's not running. I mean, there's just so much that's there, right? So if you like scripting languages, right, you like a Java, the guys over at Bug Labs, you'll find them for sure they're sponsoring that Open Hardware Summit,
which Jeff will be at also, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So those guys, have this Java based framework, and they're building off of OpenJDK, and they've got these great tools for controlling all these little add-on modules for their components, and they're based on the same fundamental building blocks as the BeagleBoard, and so there's a lot of sharing between those groups, and so if it's Java, it's a Python, is it Ruby, is it you can run Apache server if you want on your BeagleBoard, right? There's Qt or Qt or Qt, however you want to pronounce it, for building GUIs. That's a really popular one, including the QML, that quick markup language. Are you guys really interested in software? I could go on about.
All these all these weird names are just going whoosh straight over my head.
I'd say I'm about 50% on those. Yeah.
Game emulators. Actually, that's. So I got one of those iCades for my birthday recently. Yeah, it's you take an iPad and you put and you put that
box,
in this.
Right?
It's a box.
It's
the
a
joystick
box
and
that you actually slip your iPad into, and it becomes an arcade machine. It's got like a joystick and everything on it. So the iPad becomes the display.
So I'm looking for the right LCD right now. I've actually found some pretty affordable 10-inch LCDs, but I'm going to turn my iCade into instead of putting an iPad in there, I'm just going to turn it into a permanent arcade machine. So this is my next project, because you can run all these game emulators on the BeagleBoard.
So is that using MAME? Is that using a version of MAME?
You can run MAME. There's even
right.
Super Nintendo emulators. There's
right.
Yeah, there's all sorts of emulators out there.
The nerdy possibilities are endless.
It's interesting. One of the interesting things that I've seen about the BeagleBoard is if you go to ESC and you walk around, you'll see these assembly companies like Screaming Circuits, and these guys are using the BeagleBoard as advertising of like, look, we can build this, and then they show the BeagleBoard. So it's kind of a cool thing, because I think the BeagleBoard had, at least in the beginning, kind of a reputation of being difficult to assemble, right? Because the OMAP 3 has the stacked memory on top of the package, the package on package, and also I think it's a pretty fine pitch BGA, right? The processor.
0.4 millimeter ball pitch.
Pure evil, folks. Pure evil.
Not doing that one at home.
Laser drill.
Think of this. So
God.
you have this
awesome.
You have this reference design of this really kind of difficult to build board, and now all these assembly houses can download the PCB drawings and can make PCBs and do their own assembly, and it kind of puts everyone on the same playing field, right? So I actually thought that was pretty interesting, and if you walk around ESC, you'll actually see BeagleBoards that companies have assembled. So it's kind of an interesting tangent, right? Because it's probably not something that anyone anticipated, but yet I've definitely seen this over the past couple years at trade shows.
There's probably a niche market there just to mount the OMAP processor on a bloody dip conversion board, that you can plug it into your breadboard.
I think that is a market on its own.
Dead bugging it.
Dead bugging a 0.4 millimeter BGA.
So the most crazy board hack I've seen, I saw somebody actually drilled a hole underneath to correct one of the balls. Right, it was actually a short to power rail. They actually drilled out the ball underneath it and hook a wire directly to the ball on the other side of the
like
device.
34 gauge wire, that kind of thing.
I do not know how it was even
gold
possible.
bond wire or something.
One of these coaxial things. I don't know how he did it. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Do you have pictures of that somewhere? Maybe we could post them later.
Have you? I haven't seen that board in a couple years now. I'll see if Steve Beltram, or I'm sorry, Scott Beltram. I'll have to ask him where that is.
Okay. And that could be a fun segment on the Amp Hour too, just seeing crazy board hacks, because people have done some crazy stuff before. I mess stuff up all the time. And then I give it to a technician, and they're nice. They take pity on me, and then they use a 30 wire gauge. They're snaking all around and everything.
That's one of the things that in my career I've always taken pride in, is that I almost always do my own hacks. And I think in RF design, it's much more common for design engineers to also be really good in the lab.
Yeah.
Like I used to do wire bonding and stuff like that to support experiments, and I never did die attach, and I never did any like BGA assembly or things like that, because we didn't have that in what I was doing. But I actually would like to openly challenge the other members of the Amp Hour. We should do like a soldering competition.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
do you know how much coffee
I think I could do pretty well. Well, I found that there is an optimum amount of coffee. If you don't drink any coffee, you're a little too brain dead to really function at all.
Dave doesn't
I don't drink coffee at all.
Dave doesn't drink coffee.
I don't drink.
Well,
I have not touched
a
a drop of coffee in my entire life.
If your system isn't expecting this coffee input, I think you have an advantage. But for those of us who are addicted, we have a certain threshold that we need to cross in order to function at all.
Yeah.
But if you cross that threshold too far, then your hands move too much to be able to do delicate assembly. And this is a well-documented phenomenon.
Now, I think my skills are automatically going to be superior because I don't drink coffee.
Well, you're making the assumption that we haven't adapted to our coffee consumption.
No, sorry, you guys just aren't as highly evolved as I am. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In the hardware skills there, in the soldering skills.
I challenge you to a duel.
Oh my god!
So whose equipment do we use for this challenge?
Yeah,
I'll use mine. I'll provide all the equipment. I'll provide the equipment.
Dave just fly to Austin. We'll all fly to Austin. Jason, you can drive down.
I can make it to Austin.
Yeah, that's true. We have 2 Texans on the show, right?
3 if you count former Texans.
Oh, yeah. So Dave is totally outnumbered by us Yanks.
Doesn't matter. I'm going to win anyway.
I don't know if you could call it Texans Yanks though. I think in non-amp hour circles you might get punched in the face for that one.
Right, or shot or something with one of those quick draws which everyone walks around the streets with, right? They walk around with the quick draw.
I think I'm probably tolerated by Texans more than I am.
So Jason's the only true Texan. I mean, Jason, do you have a pair of boots? I mean, let's hear all the stereotypes that you fit. Computer guy.
My boots don't fit anymore. I've grown out of my boots.
Oh no!
True metaphor.
And have they got those little, what are those little wheels on the back of them? Yeah, the spurs. Spurs on the back of the boots.
Never had spurs for my boots.
No? And do you say howdy?
Jason's a Cobalt cowboy. Yeah.
Absolutely, I say howdy.
Is that a Texan thing, or am I mistaken?
It's a Texas thing. It's also an Aggie thing.
What's an Aggie?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I haven't heard Aggie before.
Come on, Jay. You gotta educate Dave. Dave tells us all about the crazy Aussieisms that he has, and
all the school stuff. I think it just gets boring quick. So I went to Texas A&M University. We're called the Aggies.
Gig 'em.
Oh, right. Okay, so it's a school.
It's the most ridiculous thing you'll ever see. It's like they're little city states within Texas. You know why? Because Texas is monstrous. It's just yeah.
It's not as big as Western Australia.
That's true. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
middle of
sorry,
nowhere.
Texas ain't. Texas is small fry. We've got hobby farms in Australia bigger than Texas.
It's a hot, Okay.
You can have them.
yeah.
Right.
Got a whole lot of nothing out there, just like in
if
Texas.
I can bring us way back to soldering, there's
Soldering.
one thing that I wanted to maybe give. I guess it's like a shout out. This weekend over Labor Day, I invested in a new tool that has totally changed my life as an electronics professional.
Do tell.
All right.
I bought, and I've wanted this for years, I bought a desoldering tool. And like, not, the solder sucker that you push in and push the button.
No.
But I actually went out and I got I don't know if you say Hako or Hako.
Heiko.
What's
Heiko.
Heiko?
Heiko vacuum desoldering tool.
I bought a desoldering gun, a Hako 808.
Yep.
And I walked into Fry's and they happened to have it and they had a decent price. And granted, it's more expensive than my soldering iron, but I had a 40-pin ZIF socket in my AVR Dragon, which is an AVR development tool, and the ZIF socket had gone bad for whatever reason. I think it was this ancient socket and I shouldn't have used it, but it stopped working and I was in sweats because desoldering a 40-pin dip, I've soldered for a long time and there are certain things that strike fear into my heart, and desoldering like large through-hole packages is one of those things because you never get it right. There's always like one lead that's hanging on, and then it rips the pad off whenever you try to.
And you have to wiggle the pin. You got to get in there and try and snap it off.
So I said, screw it. I'm going to go, and I've always wanted to buy it.
That's what I do every time. Cut off every lead. No problem.
Yep, exactly.
I would have done that, but a ZIF socket is
you
difficult.
can't do it.
There's a lot of meat there to cut through. So I went out and I bought a desoldering tool, which I've always wanted, and in 20 minutes, the socket was out, the new one was in, and I was done. Best
20
investment I've
minutes?
made. Well, including 5 minutes to plug in the tool,
I was
5
going to
minutes
say,
to
it takes
figure out how
about
to
5
use it.
seconds.
Well,
Jason's
it probably
driving down
takes
right now.
it probably takes 3 to 5 seconds per pin,
Wow,
right? Because you
wow,
heat it
wow.
up, you push the button,
Yep, it
you
does.
wait. But
Now, are
yeah,
you
it was
one of
easy.
those people who put it down on the bench and come in vertically with the vacuum desoldering tool, thinking, I can defeat gravity with this thing?
No. I didn't think about that,
Right.
so I accidentally didn't do that. But I definitely went horizontally.
You went horizontal. You didn't go upside down where you can
Yeah, you just
add,
go. All you
add
do is go
gravity
upside
to
down.
your-
You swirl that thing around 3 or 4 times in every pin.
You got to be careful swirling it around because your pad your pad can lift off.
Yeah,
So,
I was very worried about that, but I was very careful not to slam it up against the pad, and I didn't have any problems.
Right. Well done.
So how are we doing this soldering contest? And are we going to do like Google Plus, or I think we could do it through that if we had like webcams.
I think it would require physical presence.
I don't know, man. Google Plus, I think we could do it. So we could have, all of us could have a 40-pin ZIF or whatever the hell the challenge is.
No, it can't be desoldering.
actually have
we
a
need something
I've-
that shows electrical activity afterwards to
Right.
verify the functionality.
How about soldering a live line wire onto a onto a switching module? No?
And you guys don't even do the same thing as we do. It's soldering over there, right? What the hell's that? It's soldering with an L.
Soldering.
God, you can't even pronounce it correctly. How the hell are you going to win a contest? I don't know. Sorry.
Less talking, more
Not gonna
soldering.
happen.
Yep.
My favourite programming language is solder.
You might
Mine
have a
too.
tough time with the BeagleBoard, I gotta say.
Yeah, that's right. That could be like the grand prize is you have to hand solder an OMAP 3 processor on.
Yeah, it's 0.4
BeagleBoard.
millimeter.
Yeah,
I did a
good
tutorial
luck.
on 0.4 millimeter ball pitch BGAs. They're freaking evil. I was able to route out a 3-row one. If you've got a 3-row 0.4 millimeter pitch one, you can actually route it out and you can get it manufactured cheaply. But after that, as Jason mentioned, you've got to use those laser drilled vias. Really, you've got. I think you could probably get away with a 0.2 millimeter drill or 0.15 millimeter or something if you're that game. But oh man, that's evil stuff.
That's crazy.
I know, it's just nuts.
So guys, we're like 45 minutes into the show.
I know. We should get on to some regular
shocking
amp hour stuff.
So
I got some.
I have been holding on to this one little bit of news that I wanted to share with you guys here, and we really shouldn't take too much time on it. But we are planning on another BeagleBoard release, another
is this
hardware
breaking
release.
news?
Breaking news. Off the teletype.
All right.
So yeah, the next version of the BeagleBoard is going to be coming out in the fourth quarter here, and it's going to be lower cost. It's going to be no DSP, no HDMI. It's going to be yeah, it's going to be all this hardware experience. So I said we're headed in the direction. We're actually designing a board right now.
Are you looking for input?
Yeah, absolutely looking for input.
How do people contact you?
Well, the BeagleBoard mailing list is always a really great way to do so.
Yeah. Or they can listen to BeagleCast, so that's something we should probably mention on here.
Jason does, but I'm still looking for another host at this point. I need somebody who can...
Well, that's another thing to say, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely looking for a host for BeagleCast.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
BeagleCast
is a podcast
radio
show.
show.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've mentioned it on here before once,
have
I think.
we? Oh,
yes,
okay.
I think so.
There you go.
And,
yeah, I got an interview with Greg Crow-Hartman and then never did another episode.
Right.
So where did he go from there?
Clint Cooley. I want to hear Clint Cooley on the show.
Yeah, got to do that.
Speaking of Texans, right? Clint Cooley, if people don't know, Clint Cooley is one of the guys that helps manufacture the boards. I saw him at the Open Hardware Summit, and Clint's, I think I mentioned on the show before, he's got like one of the best accents ever. He's got like one of the thickest. It was East Texas, I think. He's just twanging all the way home. It's great. It's awesome. I love his accent. It's great.
Brilliant.
So, fourth quarter you said is coming out, and any price idea? Like
under
$80,
100.
$60?
Under 100.
Okay.
I probably won't give any more guidance than that, but definitely under 100.
Okay.
Wow.
And
that's great, because the BeagleBoard is about $150 right now, right?
It's $150 for the XM with the 512 megabytes of RAM, and $125 for the 256 megabytes of RAM version that goes, I think, 720 megahertz.
You know what the crazy thing is? You can buy a mobile phone for half that cost, and it's got all the shit in it, and with the OMAP processing.
Well, not if you paid retail for a mobile phone.
That's true,
You probably have to have a
Those
contract.
are heavily subsidized. Those are heavily subsidized.
No, I'm sure you can buy a $70
Yeah, it depends which phone.
mobile phone here in Australia.
Like a clamshell, like older generation
Oh
phone?
yeah, like a
Okay.
yeah. I'm not talking
Those don't
about
have
a big
OMAPs in 'em.
touchscreen smartphone.
Well, think about
No.
the economies of scale.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
how
know.
many mobile?
Just saying.
If they start making 10 million BeagleBoards, then yeah, the price will probably drop through the floor.
Yep,
Those
I
HP
agree.
touchpads.
Oh, they went crazy shit, didn't
Wish I
Man.
I didn't get one. I really
Yeah.
can't
they?
believe
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
know.
manage to get
And
one
they
of those.
sold out here in Australia in like an hour. People were
Yeah.
tweeting, and if you weren't actually clued into Twitter, you missed out. And there were lines around the corner to buy these $99 bloody touchpads. Unbelievable.
I haven't seen the touchpad. I'll have
And
to-
neither has anyone else.
it
They
out.
all sold out.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about it.
All right. Well,
yeah,
HP, right? You've heard about HP. They're selling their computer division.
I
Do
do
you
know
listen to the Amp Hour,
I
Jeff?
do know
Have
HP.
you heard of the
they-
show, the Amp
They
Hour?
used to make really nice test equipment.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Anyway, they released this new touchpad, and within weeks of them releasing it, it was released, and nobody cared because it was just another touchpad computer, right? Me too. And then they cancelled it within like a week or two of actually releasing it, and then they had this big fire sale, $99. Clear
Well,
it
the
out.
crazy thing to me is that they
And everyone went.
bought Palm before doing this, right? So
Yeah, I know exactly. How much did they pay for
Yeah.
Palm? I'm sure they picked them up at a bargain price, but
I think that proves that Palm is kind of cursed, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. The
Palm was
The
able to
level of software
no,
to me, I thought
Palm
was-
was leader in its day. It was number one.
I never liked Palm. I don't know.
Never.
I've owned 2 Palm Pilots in my life, and I hated both.
Infrared beaming of contacts, that's what I always think
Oh God!
of. Touch screens that have to be recalibrated every 60 seconds. Oh, I miss them. I think I still have mine somewhere. I should pull it apart.
I think for the PIM software, I think that they really had it down. And for the WebOS stuff, if you didn't get a chance to play with it, I think they had the absolute best integration of contexts and calendars, right? So all your contacts show up in one.
That's what everyone says, this WebOS thing is the reason they bought it. And they think, and everyone says it's fantastic, And it was a huge asset, but now they're looking to sell it. They're looking to spin it all off, discard it, toss it in the bin.
Yeah, I just want to figure out how to get a hold of all that software. I know a lot of it's open source. It's all built on top of Open Embedded, which is the same stuff that's used for the Angstrom distribution. But it's just, it would be a shame to see it go to the way of the dustbin because there's actually some really incredible technology there.
Yeah.
Well, Phil Terone, he writes for Make and he's part of Adafruit too, and he always writes about if you're gonna trash it, open source it. And he talked about the what was it, the flip phone or the flip camera that Cisco bought, and then they trashed it and everything else. And I think it's a great idea.
It is.
I think a lot of companies are against it because they say, well, it's proprietary technology. It's like, but why not just give it away?
Throw it in the bin, you dickhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, just tell them that
you're going to deny people.
Chris and Dave officially asked Ari Joxie of HB that on the amp hour, you made the official request.
Yeah, okay.
I know that they listen, so, There's a bingo word.
I was just going to say, so we should bring that up real quick. So I don't know if you guys saw the show heard the show last week, but we actually had two people create Amp Hour Bingo, and now there's actually the ampourbingo.com. People who are listening along. I should have mentioned it at the beginning of the show. This thing, it reloads like Dave's dumb phrases and my dumb phrases, and basically every time you hit reload, it's a new page, and then you actually click on it. It's got like JavaScript in there, so every time you click on a box, it turns it green. And I don't know, it's awesome. So.
There should be like a prize for if we had a live show, like we could the first person to call in and shout bingo wins a BeagleBoard,
Yeah. So I'll donate a BeagleBoard for that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll have to try and get something in there eventually.
Oh, awesome. We got taken to task again, Chris.
Yes.
We got called out on the helicopter thing, which we made fun of last week.
We did, yeah.
And the guy who did it, Brad Huey, if I'm pronouncing the Huey correctly, he emailed us and said, "No, it's not fake." Almost how dare you?
I think he was bordering on that, but it's okay.
It was, but he was quite.
We were laughing.
Nice,
we were laughing
hey, Brad.
with him, I think, and he was very, very kind about it and took it in stride.
Yeah.
Jeff and Jason, did you happen to see that video last week?
Oh yeah, okay. I saw the video.
Yeah.
It's down now, unfortunately. He took it down.
He took it down. Yeah. Anyway, he says and he has his own corporate. Well, he calls it a corporation, the Huey Electric Copter Corporation, and he's actually
HEcopter.com.
Yep, yeah. And he's actually manufacturing. Well, no, the goal is to ultimately manufacture this thing. So this is real.
I hope he's not manufacturing the ones that were in the video.
The one that dragged him down the driveway.
Yeah. So he's serious. He's doing more testing. Yeah. I think
this is serious shit.
Thing.
I mean, this is
that's cool. So
power to him.
And he said he's gonna get us videos once he's got some better testing. So we look forward to that. I can't wait. Yep. I can't wait to see it flying. I just hope that he stays safe.
Maybe Maker Faire 2012.
Right, he'll fly at Maker Faire and then crashes into the audience and chops off 1,000 heads. And
awesome. You got a parachute in or something.
I think
badass.
There's like waivers that can take care of that.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone signs a waiver as they come in the front gate.
There you go. Do they really have to sign waivers for Maker Faire or no?
No.
To get up those flame-throwing swings and everything?
The people that are in it have to sign... Like, if you present something, you have to sign a waiver that I think says you're not going to do anything stupid. I guess he'd have to sign that, but...
But I thought everything at Maker Faire is ultimately stupid dangerous in some way, shape, or form, isn't it? In traditional sense. Of stupid,
Non-standard is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly, yes. But it's, it's silly, there's lots of silly stuff there that's, cool, but,
Dave
that's
just
the
pissed
whole
off
idea
a
of the
bunch
Maker
of
Faire.
people.
You do something wild and creative and silly, That's
silly is a better
that's
word.
A lot
silly in a good
way.
Yeah.
In a good way,
Breaking convention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And speaking of breaking convention, I like this thing too. Did you guys see Bill Porter? Did you see this on Twitter?
No.
No. He asked his girlfriend at the time to marry him via PCB order through
I saw this
through Dorkbot.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Talk about non-traditional.
It was cute, and I'd like to see someone one up that one by making the boards actually functional instead of just writing on the boards.
Like it lights up the ring. If you don't know, we haven't said what it actually is. He basically asked his girlfriend, who's also a fellow electronics nerd, to marry him. But he actually etched it into a PCB, and he actually did a little PCB ring. Well,
no, he hijacked her PCB order from Neil's service.
Oh, right, I didn't read the details.
Or PCB.lane.org.
That I didn't see.
He hijacked it. So him and Neil worked on
clever.
it, and it's awesome.
Right, excellent. Now,
so
if you're going to do a PCB ring, okay, don't do it using breakout tabs. Actually get it fully routed next time. Just a little tip there.
There's a PCB tip from Dave, yep.
And get the high-quality gold plate, not that one hung low Chinese gold plate shit, right? Get the real, get the real stuff.
Yeah, and
get the edges gold plated.
And 2-ounce
as well.
copper, come on,
Get the
2-ounce
inside
copper.
and outside edges. You can do that on PCBs. You can specify it. Get the whole thing so it looks actually like... so you can't see any fiberglass at all. It's all gold, all around the whole thing.
Can you add
inside and outside
a chip
edge.
scale 555 onto there somehow?
Right. And flash some LEDs, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we just got another square.
Oh, just following along right now.
I'm now playing the show that I am also on, which is probably against some kind of code of that ethics.
Well, we already had that square with the Arduino earlier, so...
There you go. And speaking of 555, because that's our favorite, another contest starting up. Dangerous Prototypes is having a 7400 logic contest. So I saw this through Embedded Eric's website. I don't know, it's going to be kind of broad, but kind of cool idea for a contest. I don't know if you guys
hear more about me in this contest coming up shortly.
Oh, you're going to...
perhaps.
Oh, okay. No questions there, I guess, huh?
Yep.
Does that really have the same... I mean, I don't see it having the same possibilities to me as a 555 contest. I mean, I love playing with the 7400 series logic, but...
Well, I think it's got the same... Well, I think it's actually got more scope.
More scope.
That may actually be
that's
the
almost
Achilles
a bad
heel of it.
thing.
Yeah.
I
because,
agree.
Yeah.
Every time I try and anytime I talk to people who are running contests, I always say that's one thing that's good about the best contests have limited scope. They because that's what engineers want. They want that challenge to try and squeeze it all in. Like one of the suggestions we had was like a really small PIC microprocessor with 1K of memory, right? Something like that. That would be a great contest because you're so bounded in what you can do. So anyone who's doing a contest, Jason, if you do a BeagleBoard contest, make sure you can only use the RS-232 port or whatever it has on there. I'm sorry, I don't remember what the peripherals are. But if you bound it, then you're going to get some really cool entries,
Yeah, because it kind of levels the playing field a bit and makes it so that the entries are... You can appreciate that there was some ingenuity that went into each one. So, I agree.
Well, how many logic gates can somebody use in this sort of contest?
There's no limit, I don't think.
Yikes.
So, which is, I mean, you can build a Cray supercomputer with 7400 series logic if you want.
I want to see
and it could have
data
that
general
frequency,
Nova.
that 32 kilohertz frequency you were looking for earlier.
Exactly. You can clock the
Finally.
damn thing and use 4,000. And you're allowed to use 4,000 series CMOS as well. It's all over the shop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
You know what the best thing for this would be? It would be that you have to use the old data books, that you can't look anything up online. You have to look everything up through the data books. That would be a contest.
Yeah.
First
And
off,
it all has to
finding
be
them.
wire wrapped.
Oh, there you go.
Right. It's got
Well, make sure there's no 74
that'll limit
74s.
people.
Everybody has to build their own flip-flops.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Oh,
Make this
boy.
a fighting contest yet. And so we should mention, too, if people are out there listening and do have things to donate, I think they're still looking for prizes. So it could
Yes,
be a
they
cool
are.
contest. So definitely. I think I saw some other companies throwing in a BeagleBoard already, but maybe Jason will throw in another BeagleBoard or two.
Yep. They need some big players in the sponsorship stakes. Mm-hmm. At the moment, it's a bit slim pickings, but yes, they should. So all of you tight-ass huge multi-billion-dollar corporations out there, get off your ass and sponsor it.
Yeah, get in with the hobbyists. We hear that's the big thing now.
Yeah, apparently.
So, in the last couple minutes here, Jeff, why don't you? So you were just at the Chaos Communications Camp. We were talking to you a little bit during that. You were out in the woods on Wi-Fi or something really nerdy like that, right?
Yeah, I had I had a heck of a time getting a good internet connection at various times during my Europe vacation, because we were actually going to try to do a show while I was in Berlin, but the hotel that I was at had a horrible internet connection. It was hard to even do anything, much less stream audio. But
I had to talk to people and go outside, and it's horrible.
Well, it is challenging whenever you're traveling, but I would have done it if I could have made it work, but it just didn't work out. And I think I was pretty wiped out at that point anyway, so I wasn't about to go down to some cafe or something and try to
talk to everyone while you're
steal their
yeah. Bunch of Germans staring at you. Yeah.
I don't know if very many people know what Chaos Camp is, and I only know about it because Mitch Altman introduced me to it a couple years ago. But Chaos Communications Camp is it happens every 4 years. I don't know what the word for that is. It's every 4 yearly.
Quaternernal? Is it, biennial, triennial, quadennial? Maybe?
Okay, but anyway, it happens every 4 years. It just happened. It's just outside of Berlin. It's put on by the Chaos Computer Club, which is a really old-school hacking organization that's based in Berlin, I think, that's been around since the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And the best way to describe it is it's sort of like Burning Man, except there's more computers and less nudity. So it's like a Burning Man for nerds. And,
what's
and
Burning Man?
geeks.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, my my comparison fails. Burning Man is an annual event that happens in the United States where these people
in the Southwest in the desert.
In the
Texas,
desert where people go and
the easy way to explain it to an
actually
Aussie is it's Saturday night in the Outback.
Oh, you set shit on fire, you drink a lot, and you get naked.
Yeah, there's exactly. Yep.
Right.
Yep. And there's a lot of interesting light shows and stuff like that. People bring things that they build, and so this is the same thing. People
is this a young
build
person
things.
thing, or is it a? I assume
No.
it's not
Actually,
it
so
doesn't sound like a family event, you know?
No,
Well,
no.
So Chaos Camp is interesting because I think it represents the part of the difference of European hacker culture versus what exists in the United States, in that there's an extremely broad cross-section of age, occupation, personality, and there are families. So people actually bring their kids, and there's a whole section of the campsite. And if I didn't make this clear, this is camping. So you go
This is tent
out,
camping, not
this is
cabin
tent camping.
Yeah, okay.
Some people bring RVs, you know.
Like crapping on the woods kind of camping, right?
And actually, there are bathrooms and showers.
Aw,
so there are
come
some.
on.
Well, come on. I mean, I only put up with a certain amount of camping. But think of this: you've got somewhere around 4,000 hackers, which in the European sense, especially, are professionals in the computer science, electrical engineering, etc., who basically are on summer vacation and want to have a good time, and so they go camping. And at the campsite, which is a former Soviet Air Force base, they have
computers. Lots and lots of computers.
extremely high-speed internet. There's a phone network. There's electricity to your tent. So I brought a tent. No. To appreciate this, you have to see
Might as well
it.
stay
It
at
is
a
the
bloody
most.
hotel.
It is the most awesome thing you've ever seen, because think about it. Temporarily, for 4 or 5 days, you are camped amidst over 3,000 other people who
that's
are
awesome.
bringing interesting electronics things. They've got their laptops. And the interesting thing is that hacker spaces all around Europe, if not the world, go to this thing, and they actually bring big stuff. So the people who can drive load up a truck with like a couch, tables, chairs. There was a big tent that was brought by the folks from Metal Lab, which is in Vienna, not too far away, although it's at least a few hours drive. They had a crepe making robot that they brought that was actually making crepes all weekend. They had at least one MakerBot There was a Rigol oscilloscope. They had a full electronics lab, and they also had a lounge area with like beanbags and stuff where you could just chill out and it's hard to describe, but I hope that I've captured at least part of the vibe of it. But the best part about it is that whenever the sun sets, it is the most unreal display of LEDs and lighting creations that you have ever seen in your life. So we had everything from LEDs everywhere, RGB LEDs everywhere, doing crazy patterns, to video projected onto trees in the distance, projecting movies and stuff. To someone had a RGB laser projector that was playing vector arcade games on the side of a building. There was everything, and I mean everything from the cool to the weird to the who knows. Like it was really fascinating, and I took a few pictures that are on Flickr that give you like 1% of it, because it really was impossible to see everything and take pictures of everything. But
what about like
anyway,
video? Is there any good place to see video on YouTube or anything like that?
There
good
should
accounts?
be quite a bit on Flickr. If I can scare up some links, I will post them to the show notes, and I'll see what I can find. I mean, part of the issue is that it is a hacker conference, and photography is discouraged of people, and so I didn't have my camera out all the time, but I did take pictures of some of the static art installations. And actually, one of the coolest things that I saw, which is not even that electronics related, was there were at least 3 video installations where they had digitized the scene that they were projecting onto, and then the projected visuals were mapped onto the 3D scene. So you actually had stuff like line art tracing features in the scene that the projector was projecting onto. It kind of blew my mind, the sophistication, and I think people just do this in their spare time. This was better visuals than I've ever seen anywhere in my life, like totally jaw-dropping. And this goes on for like 5 days. I think we were there for 5 days, and it rained quite a bit, so we had some weather-related issues, but overall
water and electricity,
it was
right?
water and electricity. But I got to tell you, these guys know how to do it. They've been doing this for many years, and so they really know how to waterproof everything. All the lighting stood up to the rain and to the wind, but some of the highlights actually were the program featured actually a special focus for some of the talks, which is hacker space program. And Nick Farr, who's an American, advocate of the hacker scene, proposed a plan which may seem a little bit ridiculous, but I think he was being serious. So he's proposing a hacker space program which has 3 components.
Wait. Hackers
Space.
in space. Yeah.
Hackers in space.
Okay.
That's right. So part 1, he wants to build a global satellite internet network, which is censorship free, so no government can turn off because it's satellite, right? Step 2 is he wants to put a hacker in orbit, and I think that includes hopefully getting them back. And then step 3 is they want to put a hacker on the moon by 2034.
And bring him back as well?
There were a lot of eye rolls during this, but I think really at the root of it, it's about motivating people to pursue space as
do what NASA's not doing right now. Basically.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right. So
and so we should mention too that you said Hackers Space program, right? We should also mention that 4 years ago, that actually is what kicked off the United States-based, upsurge in hackerspaces.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. So the hackerspace movement in the United States was a direct result of Chaos Camp in 2007, and there were a bunch of people
Mitch
there
came back
that
and started Noise Bridge and everything else.
That's right. That's right. And actually, Chris, if I can check off another bingo square, there were a lot of amateur radio things.
Or ham. Ham is another.
Or ham, as some people call it.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the cool things is that there was a station put up by some of the guys from Vienna, from Metal Lab, and they actually did 2 meter, so 140 megahertz moon bounce at the camp.
Awesome.
So they had this huge dual Yagi antenna that they had driven to camp and set up over the week. And I understand that they didn't actually make a complete contact, but they were heard by several stations around the world, and they also were able to copy part of a transmission that they later figured out was for them. So they had some challenges, but they had it like 90% working at least, and they were allowing people to go over and check out their equipment, and I thought that was cool. I mean, because you think about so many people would say, well, I can't even do that at my house. These guys just set up at a campsite. You know.
Right, Moonbounce is usually doing like really low temperature electronics as well, right? Because it's so sensitive.
It depends, but yeah, I mean, they had some sensitive LNAs and stuff that were mounted on their antennas, but these guys actually didn't even have their ham licenses more than 2 years ago. So these are all like brand new hams who got their license just to do this kind of stuff, and they are moving much faster than, you know, they figured out how to do it and they set it up, and I have a feeling that next time they try, they'll be able to pull it off, because it is a big challenge. They were aiming their antennas manually because they didn't have time to set up a rotator, and it was just cool to see these guys like with ropes out there eyeing the moon and trying to swing these antennas.
Thumb up,
so that they it was totally it was totally like that. But if that was really cool. But actually, the thing that I was there for is I gave a 2 workshops on building a Geiger counter that I designed, and there's kind of a funny story which I probably can't get too far into because we're running out of time.
We're 10 minutes over.
Well,
the amp hour plus.
We can go out and remove some portions of the show which were
with the BeagleBoard part, we can get
Australian.
That's right.
Jason,
Get rid of all that stuff.
Australian guy, just
that too.
edit him out. You know.
The long story short is that I designed a Geiger counter for specifically for the conference because I wanted to be able to give workshops and provide something. There was a hardware hacking area where people could solder together kits, and I'm like, what do people want? You know, what do people are they interested in right now? And radiation and sensing radiation seems like a big thing because of Fukushima, because of all this sensationalism about radiation exposure. And so 1 month before the conference, I decided I was going to do it. 2 weeks later, I had a PCB designed out for fab. 2 weeks after that, I had PCBs back. 3 days before I left for Europe, I got all the parts, put them into bags, and I flew it out there, and 30 people built kits. Nobody had problems. It all went 100% to plan, and people were really excited about it. So if I can... I guess this is shameless self-promotion, but if anyone's interested in checking out these kits or building one of their own, I'm going to be at the New York Maker Faire in about 2 weeks, and I'll actually be selling kits. So it was a huge amount of fun, and I'm definitely going to go back to the next conference, which is actually in the Netherlands in 2 years. So they stagger them between the Netherlands and Germany. And the Dutch conference is actually just as much fun. I went to the one in 2009 called Hacking at Random, and it's similar, maybe a little bit smaller, but just as cool. So I highly recommend these Europe hacker conferences. They will absolutely inspire you and change your life. So yeah, it was great. It was awesome. It's great to be home, but I got to say, it was just totally awe-inspiring to go to one of these things.
That's great, man. Sounds like, Dave, you should fly the other way and meet Jeff over there. And
Jason, right, yeah.
Jason, you should get TI to fly you out there. And
sounds good. Somehow I've got to, increase the interest in the Geiger counter world. That ought to justify it.
Well, I think just the general hacking side of things. I think that, just say we need to sell more BeagleBoards in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Specifically in the Netherlands.
Yeah, right. If you think about it, it's an interesting gateway into a lot of these people who are hackers are professionals during the day. And the interesting thing about Chaos Camp is that there's a lot of engineers that are there, and this is their idea of fun. And I think it's a great vacation because you basically spend a week camping in not the wilderness, but you're still kind of off the beaten path. You have all the creature comforts of your internet and your power and your computer, but
Pussies.
you're in this intensely social environment. And the coolest thing was that you can walk around, and I visited the tents of many hacker spaces in Europe that I'd never been to before. And after camp, whenever I was traveling through Europe, I got to actually go to the hacker spaces, and I was greeted with like so much enthusiasm. It was great. It was like I was instantly a friend of these people who I'd never met before, and you just get to see this cross section of European hacker culture. That's just it's
so
really
why
amazing.
doesn't that same sort of thing happen at Maker Faire? I mean, I love going to Maker Faire. I think it's a wonderful environment, but there's no overnight camping. I mean, I'm kind of surprised they don't incorporate some things like that, and more. I mean, there's some pretty impressive art shows that actually happen at Maker Faire, and the things that people do with the massive Tesla coils and.
I don't know. There was some talk at camp that this should happen in the United States, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years there is something. I think the closest event like this is TourCon, which I've never been to before, but the last one happened at an abandoned missile silo in the Pacific Northwest, I think. Cool. I didn't make it out. I don't think it's as hardware-centric as camp is, but camp has something for everyone. It's not just about hardware. It's just that it's so big that the hardware portion is enough for me to be occupied for a week. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see something like this, and I'd like to see the...
If you guys like mosquitoes and blistering heat, we could have it in August in Ohio. I mean, or blistering heat, we can have it anytime in Texas. So I'm just saying, we can have this happen. So, Jeff,
all right, guys.
I
hate to be a killjoy, but we're 15 minutes over.
Oh,
the amp hour plus 1/4.
Can we mention that the Forstem MEMS book? Just as a
okay.
Oh, okay. So
as a closing note.
So one of the items on the show list was that Forstem MEMS is the books are now back at Radio Shack.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
I didn't think they ever left Radio Shack.
I haven't been to a Radio Shack in a long time. So
I was at a Radio Shack last week, and there were quite a few Forrest MEMS books there. They had like different covers, so they look a little different than the old Engineers mini notebooks do. But I haven't been to Radio Shack much in the past 10 years, so maybe they did vanish for a time. But I didn't realize that they actually stopped carrying them completely.
They must have, because they made a big announcement that they're back. So. There you go.
They were out of stock,
but they just restocked.
Stock.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, guys. Our amp hour is well and truly up.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much, as usual, Jeff. And Jason, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.
So the thing I didn't manage to mention on the show is the working name. How the names tend to stick on these boards, and the working name for
so this is like what we talked about earlier in the show. With you get to make up like BeagleBoard, how it started with Gerald's Beagle and everything, right?
Yeah, and how the internal project names tend to stick. Well, the working name for the next BeagleBoard is the BeagleBoard Bone. So it's the treat for the BeagleBoard.
TI Bone Hardware Hackers.
The marketing options are limitless.
Unbelievable.
Spectacular.
BeagleBoard Bone.
Hey, it's bad to the bone.